things were a bit tense between the group members on their way back was a bit of an understatement. On one hand, they were able to recruit Rostam to their cause and even gain the trust of Humbawa as well as Simurg in the process. But on the other hand, they had to bring back the infamous Feridoun with them to the Frumi Tribe camp, as per Humbawa's terms of agreement. Farid, as well as Nasir and Soraya, were still mad at Feridoun for all the trouble he caused for them, with Soraya holding a grudge against the dragon for insulting her brother earlier, whereas Yasuka and Tahir tried to remain civil towards the dragon, despite his previous actions causing the debacle they were currently in. Either way, they had a lot of explaining to do when they returned to the Frumi Tribe camp. I still don't see why we need to bring someone like him to the camp, Soraya muttered in a grumpy tone. While I get that you sympathize with him for also getting cursed by Dahak, but need I remind you that he brought upon himself? I know you don't trust him, but if Humbawa trusts him to help us, we shouldn't question it just because of our grudge against Feridoun, Tahir stated. Besides, it's not like he meant for all this to happen. But he tried to insinuate that you and him were the same when you're nothing alike, Soraya pointed out. The nerve of him, acting like you're just a coward and prideful as he is when you didn't do anything wrong. But is he wrong about that, though? Tahir asked in a self-deprecating manner. I couldn't face our parents properly due to my failure in taking down that accursed sorcerer and abandoned you as a baby. I disappointed everyone in the kingdom and had to live in the wild like Feridoun did, before eventually finding someone who was kind enough to take me in. Tahir, don't say that, Soraya pleaded. The only reason why you left was because Madar Padar disowned you for something that wasn't your fault. You are not a coward, unlike that no-good Feridoun. She has a point, you know, Yasuka assured Tahir, patting his back in a consoling manner, which made Tahir both surprised and pleased at the same time. You did the best you could, even when it came to Dahak and his dangerous magical abilities. He just so happened to take you by surprise, like he did for everyone else in Avesta. You don't have to keep blaming yourself for what happened that day. No, you should not, Feridoun said as he flew closer to the group, much to their surprise. I can see that I was mistaken in comparing yourself to me when it came to our respective encounters against Dahak. Again, I am truly sorry for misjudging you and assuming we are the same just because we were cursed into becoming animals against our will. It's fine, Tahir stated. I know you didn't mean to imply anything negative about me or insult my honor. Wait a minute, how long were you listening to us? Soraya asked suspiciously. I may have overheard your conversation while I was flying beside your brother, Feridoun admitted with some embarrassment, causing Soraya to narrow her eyes at him. So you're an eavesdropper now? She accused, causing him and the others to be taken aback. What? Were you expecting us to sing praises about your constant failures? Is that it? I didn't say that, Feridoun insisted. I apologize if I made you uncomfortable once more. Soraya, Yasuka pleaded while placing a hand on the princess's shoulders. I think he's learned his lesson by now. You don't need to be so harsh on him. Fine, Soraya conceded begrudgingly, but not before glaring at Feridoun once more. But I don't want to talk to you for the rest of the trip. As you wish, Feridoun agreed as he flew a bit further away from the group. I must admit, that young lady is quite the feisty character. I can respect that, especially considering who we're going to have to deal with later. I can only hope that I'll be able to redeem myself for my mistakes once the time comes. Meanwhile, back on the ground, Nasir, Farid, Rostam, Anzor, and the two horses continued to run back to where the camp was, with Nasir having looked up in surprise due to overhearing the commotion in the sky above them. Man, he's really gonna tick her off again, Nasir commented. Then again, can't blame her given all the crap he pulled in allowing Dahak to ruin Avesta. Yeah, I'm still not 100% on board with allowing that failure of a hero to accompany us, Farid admitted. I have a feeling Padar will feel the same way once he finds out that Feridoun is alive and wants to help us. Yes, something tells me that your Padar won't be happy to see him, Rostam agreed with worry. I just hope we can convince him to give him a chance, despite how questionable that is. He may be more willing to listen if we tell him that my Padar insisted that we bring Feridoun back with us for the sake of the rebellion. That would be the best option for now, Gordafari replied with a nod. He respects the king of the forest as much as we do, even if he hasn't seen him in person. Of course, my Padar is also a reasonable man, so he should be willing to hear us out. That's good to hear, Rostam said in relief. I don't want the rebellion to risk getting torn apart again over some minor disagreements. I doubt it will, Gordafari assured him. He wouldn't let something like that happen, especially when gathering new allies. He's too pragmatic for that. The other tribe members and Nasir's family, however, they might be a tad bit apprehensive when it comes to Feridoun joining us. Yeah, my Madar hates Feridoun and blames him for the whole mess that happened during the first rebellion, Nasir revealed with a grimace. Omarazda knows how she'll react should she find out he's still alive and wants to join us after having gone missing for hundreds of years. By the way, I've been wondering, how are you able to run so fast? Gordafari asked Rostam. You don't seem to be getting tired, nor have you shown any signs of fatigue while running along with our horses. Yeah, I've been meaning to ask you about that too, Nasir commented. You must have really strong legs and stamina to keep up with our horses and Anzor over here. Yes, I was told that by my family when I was younger, Rostam revealed. At least before they died. Even as a child, I was always very strong and fast, to the point where it both scared and fascinated the other tribe members. Of course, it did come in handy when I was hunting, or protected the younger members from any crooks or threats that came to our home. At the time, it made me feel a little lonely due to my strength surpassing the others. Same thing for my speed. I often outran anyone who raced against me or tried to chase me, even during training. No one else could match me in combat besides D's and some of the stronger beasts like griffins and manticores. I see, Gordafari responded in sympathy. Well, at least you have a place with us and won't be judged for it. I could spar with you if that'll make you happy. Sure, why not? Rostam replied with a small smile. That would be nice. Hopefully you can take me on a sparring match later. I'll see what I can do, Gordafari replied with a slight giggle. Though I'll have to get my father's permission in order to do so. That will be wise, yes, Rostam said with an eager grin. Nasir could only smirk as he took in the conversation happening between Gordafari and Rostam. And she teased me for being a romantic, Nasir thought to himself in amusement. If anyone else heard this, they'd probably mistake their upcoming sparring match for something else. Oh, look at that, we're here. Like he said, the group found themselves at the mountainous regions where the secret base was hidden. Both Rostam and Feridoun were surprised and intrigued by the mountains that hid the secret base, with the latter being interested by how it remained hidden for so long. So this is where Kave's rebellion has been all this time, Feridoun thought to himself. Not even I knew where it was until now. Perhaps it was for the best that I didn't know until now, given my failures. I can only hope he will forgive me someday, once I inevitably pass on. Somehow I thought your family lived in the forest areas, to be honest, Rostam admitted. Well, we did consider it, but because we didn't want to risk luring the D's or any of Dahak's followers after us and potentially destroying more of the wildlife within Avesta, we decided to move to the mountains in order to avoid any further damage to the forest, Gordafari explained. That makes sense, Rostam commented. At least you're trying to make sure the environment and habitats of Avesta have a better chance of surviving Dahak's corruption. Anyways, how do we get inside? I need to go in and check if Padar and the others made it back first, Gordafari said. He told me to check on him once we brought you back with us, and I'm one of the few people who knows the secret code to get inside. Makes sense, Rostam said as he stepped aside to let Gordafari and her horse through. Ladies first, after all. Thank you, Gordafari said as she had her horse gallop closer to the base. Such a gentleman, despite having lived in the wilderness for most of his life, she thought to herself with intrigue and amusement. Simurg and Humbawa raised him well. Once she arrived at the base, one of the guards who was standing there noticed her and quickly alerted the chief, who was also nearby. Chief, she's back! Your daughter's back! The guard said to Gazdaham, who let out a sigh of relief. Oh, thank Omorasta! Gazdaham stated as he left his hiding spot within the foliage and went to hug his daughter. Daughter! I am so glad to see you're alive. Where are the others? Did you find him? The last member of the Frumi Tribe? Yes, we did, Gordafari confirmed as she returned his hug. But we also brought another guest to the base, as per Humbawa's orders. He wouldn't let us borrow the last remaining Frumi Tribe member, Rostam, unless we brought this guest to our base for the sake of defeating Dahak. Really? And who is this guest that you speak of, besides the Frumi Tribe member? Is it someone we know? Gazdaham asked with curiosity. Gordafari could only suck in her breath, as she knew that her father wasn't going to like the answer. It is, and he is someone you really don't like, Gordafari admitted with a grimace. After seeing the concerned and confused expression on his face, the warrior woman sighed before gesturing him to follow her. I think it's best that I introduce you to both of them personally. Gostam accepted the offer and remained silent as he and a couple of the other Frumi Tribe members followed after her. Once they did, they were greeted to the sight of not just Tahir and his group, but also the ruggedly scarred man, Rostam, and the dragon Feridoun. Of course, neither of them had realized that the dragon was the hated Feridoun, and were more surprised by the fact that a large dragon like him showed up at all. After staring in silence, Gazdaham finally spoke up to greet Rostam first. Greetings, he began with a bow. My name is Chief Gazdaham of the Frumi Tribe. It is an honor to meet you. It is an honor to meet you too, chieftain, Rostam replied with a bow of his own. Your daughter speaks highly of you, and my father has entrusted me to join your cause for the sake of taking down Dahak. Indeed he has, which we are truly grateful for, Gazdaham thanked before turning to the dragon. If you don't mind me asking, who is this dragon? Is he a companion of yours? There was a tense silence before the dragon spoke up, knowing that the others wouldn't take the truth well. My name is Feridoun, he revealed in a resigned tone, causing the Frumi Tribe members sans Gordafari to gasp in shock. Gazdaham didn't gasp, but he did widen his eyes in shock before scowling. Gordafari, Rostam, Yasuka, and Tahir grimaced as they knew that he wouldn't react well to the truth, whereas Soraya and Nasir were eager to see how the others would respond. Feridoun, Gazdaham replied, the failed savior of Avesta, the one who allowed Dahak to roam free while bringing ruin to the first rebellion founded by Kaveh. You're Feridoun? Yes, I am, Feridoun confirmed with a nod. I know I am the last person to join your cause after my failures, but please understand, I wish to redeem myself from my previous failures. Humbawa and Omurasa have deemed it so, and given the current situation at hand, they want us to work together so we can have a better chance of taking him down. Padar, I know this is not ideal, but it was the only way Humbawa would allow us to bring Rostam to the base, Gordafari stated. If I may interject, perhaps we should get inside the base first before discussing things further, Rostam suggested in a polite tone. I am aware of the risks that it holds, but Feridoun is genuine about wanting to join the cause, like I am, and if my father trusts him, then maybe we should too. Are you crazy? After what he did to us? One of the Frumi Tribe members shouted in objective. There is no way in Avesta that we are letting that jackass inside our base, another hunter exclaimed. Enough! Gazdaham shouted with a raised hand that silenced the other protesters almost immediately. We should discuss this within the base. We need to gather everyone within the tribe so we can get their input during this special meeting. Thank you, Padar, Gordafari thanked with a bow. The group then proceeded to go back to the base entrance and slipped inside one at a time, though Feridoun had a bit of trouble getting inside thanks to his large size. Once they were all inside, the Frumi Tribe hunters that accompanied Gazdaham immediately went to gather the rest of the tribe members, while also giving the dragon dirty looks before leaving, since they wanted an excuse to get away from him. Feridoun could only sigh in resignation, since he knew that not everyone would be willing to give him a chance. So, what have you been doing while we were gone? Gordafari asked her father. We managed to sell the skins, as well as the meat harvested by our hunters to the bazaars, along with having brought enough resources to last us for the next few months. We also managed to buy some slaves that were being auctioned and kept them here for their own safety, Gazdaham explained. That's good to hear, Gordafari said with relief. I would be surprised, if not disappointed, if you didn't save them. You didn't get caught by the auctioneers, did you? No, we didn't. At least not this time, Gazdaham assured his daughter. We made sure to be subtle about our intentions to buy the slaves, though some folks unfortunately didn't like the idea of being outbid by us, and tried to fight us for the newly freed slaves. Fortunately, your old man showed that he wasn't chieftain for nothing, and managed to take them down without too much trouble, especially with help from the other tribe members. That's good to hear, Gordafari said with an impressed smile. Man, how wish we could have seen that, Nasir admitted before noticing something surprising. He saw two figures in the slight distance, rapidly approaching, with Gordafari also being surprised to see them. Wait, is that... Gordafari asked as she pointed at two familiar people. Mador? Pador? Nasir asked in shock. Shadi was the first to turn in his direction and smiled happily as she ran to greet her son, with Nader unable to stop her from rushing to him. Nasir! She shouted with joy as she pulled him into a tight hug, lifting him off the ground for a brief moment and spinning him around to the amusement of the others. I am so glad you're safe! Madar, what are you doing here? I thought you were back in the forest! Nasir cried out in surprise, but not before returning the hug and trying to breathe. We wanted to check on you, that's all, Nader revealed before patting his son on the back. It's been months since we last saw you, and the only way we could talk to you was through the secret messages the tribe members gave us. How have you been doing? Pretty good, Nasir answered. We've been continuing to train and gain more allies, while also taking out some of Dahak's operations, though me and the others got attacked a couple of times by thieves and human criminals. Oh, my poor baby, Shadi exclaimed as she hugged her son once more before taking notice of the new visitors. And who might you be? My name is Rostam, the burly man introduced himself in a polite tone. As for the dragon here, well, let's just say he is actually another person who was cursed by Dahak, like Prince Tahir over there. Really? Oh my goodness, I am so sorry, Shadi said in a sympathetic tone before turning to the dragon in question. You have my deepest sympathies. Thank you, Miss, Feridoun said with a small smile, despite how somber it was. But I fear that you may not feel much sympathy for me should you find out who I really am. What do you mean by that? Shadi asked with worry, but was interrupted from asking any further questions the moment the rest of the Frumi Tribe members arrived for the special meeting. The moment everyone was gathered in the main area of the base, Gazdaham cleared his throat before he began his speech. Everyone, we have some news to inform you all, Gazdaham began. As of today, we have 2 new allies who will be joining our cause. However, we need input from all of you on whether they can be trusted or not. Our first guest is Rostam, the adoptive son of the great Seamerk and king of the forest Humbawa. He is also the last member of the once existing Frumi Tribe and wishes to aid us in our quest to defeat Dahak. Murmurs of surprise and amazement were heard from the crowd, especially from those who heard of the Frumi Tribe's infamous destruction. Rostam could see expressions of sympathy towards him, which made him somber, though he brightened up a bit when he felt Gordafarid's hand on his shoulder. As for our second guest, he is someone many of us already know, Gazdaham revealed, though his tone was a lot more serious, if not cold, compared to the warmer inflection he had just now. He is someone who was chosen by both Umarasta and Humbawa to help us in our rebellion. As for who he is, his name is Feridoun. What? Shadi cried out in shock, with a couple of other Frumi Tribe members also repeating her words in outrage. Predictably, the news that Feridoun would be joining the rebellion caused others to protest, including Shadi and Nader. Shadi, in particular, was very vocal about her objections, and at one point, someone threw a rock at Feridoun in anger, though no one knew who it was. While the rock itself didn't hurt Feridoun, even if it did hit his snout, the act itself brought more shame for him and reminded him of how hated he was by everyone. Seeing that the situation was getting more volatile, Gazdaham attempted to defuse it by continuing his speech before things spiraled out of control. Everyone, I know this is not ideal, and I share your anger over what Feridoun did to us, but please understand, from what my daughter and her comrades informed us, he has been staying with Humbawa and given a second chance to help us during this time against Dahak. Really? He gets a second chance after what he did to my ancestor Kaveh? Shadi shouted in anger. This caught Feridoun's attention the moment she mentioned the revolutionary leader's name. Kaveh? You're related to him? He asked in surprise. Yes, I am! Shadi revealed in anger. I am one of his descendants and vowed to finish what he started, which wouldn't have had to happen had you not run away like a coward and abandoned us. You had one chance to fulfill the prophecy, yet you not only screwed it up by taking on Dahak all by yourself, you ran away just to hide your shame. And now you suddenly show up after 100 years have passed, and only now you want to help us? How do we know you're not going to bail on us like you did before? I understand you are angry at me, and you have every right to do so, Feridoun admitted with shame, but please understand, at the time I was very young and foolhardy to the point of being reckless. I tried to go back to the rebellion and explain to Kaveh what happened to me, but I wasn't able to control my draconic abilities, which prevented me from warning Kaveh and the others about Dahak's next attack. By the time I did arrive, it was too late. The rebellion had been ruined, with many members either dying, going into hiding, or defecting in despair. Only then did I decide to leave, because I was too ashamed to glance upon the destruction I unwittingly caused. After wandering the wilderness for years alone and full of regret, I found myself being visited by Omorazda through one of his Yazatas, who told me to go to Humbawa for safety and to learn how to hone my new abilities. Believe me when I say that it was not easy, especially with me being trapped in a different body that wasn't even human. But thanks to Humbawa's tutelage, I was able to control my new form and even learn how to use my dragon abilities to its fullest extent. Even so, I never showed myself to the surviving rebellion members. I knew that if I did, they would never trust me again after my failure. So, to be there for him and Kaveh. Well, you ain't wrong about that, Soraya pointed out in a blunt manner, with some like Nasir nodding in agreement. But I see that my arrogance and recklessness brought this upon us all, and with Omoraza's permission, I swear to do my part in taking down Dahak like I was meant to do. Feridoun insisted in a solemn yet sincere tone. You want to help us so badly? Shadi asked in a sarcastic tone. Why don't you just go back to the forest already and stay out of our way? That's all you're ever good for! Shadi, dear, maybe you shouldn't be so hard on him, Nader pleaded, while placing his hands on his wife's shoulders. I think he may be genuine in wanting to help us, and it has been 100 years since the disastrous first rebellion. Maybe we should give him another chance. Are you serious right now? Shadi asked in bafflement. How can you suddenly defend him after everything he did to us? I'm not defending him, Nader clarified. I'm just saying that we need to be pragmatic here. If Omorazda and Humbawa stated that Feridoun is worth trusting, then we shouldn't question their orders. Even so, we can't ignore how much damage he caused because of his mistakes and how it got Kaveh killed, Shadi pointed out in anger. Not a day goes by when I don't regret causing Kaveh's demise, Feridoun revealed in a somber tone. When I heard about his demise, I was devastated. I blame myself every day for his death and how it could have been prevented had I just listened to his advice instead of taking matters into my own hands. I saw him as a mentor figure as well as an additional father figure too. I mean it when I say that I am truly sorry for unwittingly causing his demise and ruining his dreams. As he said this, he hung his head in shame and had a mournful expression on his face, which surprised and perhaps caused some to look at him with pity. Even Asir, who was also a descendant of Kaveh and had a grudge against Feridoun, couldn't help but feel pity for the dragon, with Soraya also sharing his pity as well. The rest of the Frumi Tribe members had mixed views on Feridoun, even after hearing his side of the story. Some remained unforgiving and distrustful towards the failed savior, while others began to wonder if hating him really was worth it after hearing everything that happened to him. Murmurs continued to occur between the audience present before Ghazdaham cleared his throat and spoke up again. Anyways, I understand there are some of you who still don't trust him, but Humbawa and Omorazda made it very clear that we are to work with him in order for the rebellion to succeed. Not just that, he has information that could allow us to have a chance to take down Dahak, Gordify revealed to the surprise of the other Frumi Tribe members and Nasir's family. And what is the secret information, if you don't mind me asking? Nader asked. It involves the birthplace of Dahak and a tribe that he himself came from before he cast away his humanity, Feridoun revealed. He once lived in the southeastern part of Avesta and came from an ancient clan, one that predated many of the kingdoms that existed around Avesta, including the Bahar kingdom. Really? It's that old? Soraya asked in surprise. Yes, it is, Feridoun confirmed with a nod. Unfortunately, his lust for power and forbidden knowledge was prominent even when he was a youth, and what he did next was unspeakable. The tone of which he spoke those words sounded more haunted the moment he said it, which left the others unsettled, with even his most vocal objectors feeling unnerved over what Dahak did to scare Feridoun. I'm aware that this may not be enough for us to agree on whether Feridoun can be trusted to join our rebellion, but if Omorazda deems it so, then we should give him a chance, Ghazdaham insisted. But is it a good idea to keep him in the base? One Frumi Tribe man asked with concern. What if he leads the enemy to us? What if Dahak finds out about his existence and uses him to get to us? A Frumi Tribe woman asked. If it is alright with you all, perhaps it would be best for me to stay in a different part of the mountains until you need my assistance, Feridoun suggested. That way I won't risk leading Dahak or his allies to his hideout. All in favor of that decision? Rostam asked. Raise your hands for yes, keep them down if no. The moment he said this, half of the tribe raised their hands, with Nasir and his parents, along with Soraya, also doing the same. As for the other half, they didn't seem to mind the idea of Feridoun staying within the camp. Tahir and Jessica didn't raise their hands, or paw in the former's case, since they wanted Feridoun to adjust to being around people again. Of course, the majority of the voters called for the dragon to stay out of the base until further notice, which saddened Feridoun, but made him understand just how much he had to improve if the people he was supposed to help were going to stop treating him like a pariah. He sighed before nodding in acceptance regarding the decision. Very well then, Feridoun said. I shall stay outside of the base until I have earned the trust of everyone here, and maybe stay out while you're at it too, Shadi muttered bitterly. We will discuss this more later, Rostam stated. This meeting is adjourned, so you can all go back to whatever you were doing earlier. As soon as he said this, everyone else left the area to go back to whatever errands they were previously doing, though it was clear that some left so they wouldn't have to be around Feridoun. There were dirty looks given to him before leaving, but he endured it since he knew that changing their minds would be a lot more difficult than he hoped, though he was glad to see that not everyone hated him for the mess he unwittingly caused. This would make it easier for him to endure whatever mistreatment he'd inevitably have to face in the near future. Soraya and her brother had left with Jessica, Nasir, and his family to catch up with them on what happened during their 6 months away from Nasir's home, along with getting more updates on what happened to the rest of Avesta. This left Feridoun alone with Rostam, Gordafari, and Ghazdaham, who awkwardly stood beside him. Ghazdaham coughed as he spoke up once more before Feridoun and Rostam. Well then, I guess there's only one thing to do now, Rostam said as he turned to Rostam and Feridoun. Welcome to the Resistance. We hope you enjoy your stay here. I expect you both to contribute to our goals, especially you, Feridoun. As he said this, he gave a very stern look in the direction of the dragon, who nodded in agreement despite his shame. I won't let you down, Rostam said as he placed his hand on his chest in affirmation. Neither will I, my good chieftain, Feridoun said with a bow. I will do whatever it takes to make it up to all of you for my failures. See that you do, Rostam warned, because me and my ancestors put a lot of effort in rebuilding the rebellion after the first attempt failed centuries ago. Remember that. The chieftain left with Rostam and Gordafari to discuss further matters, leaving Feridoun with his thoughts. And maybe I can finally reunite with my family once this is over.